Hello and welcome to Muse and Metrics. This is your host, Philippa Burgess, and I'm here today with another wonderful guest.
Hello, everyone. So my name is Assitan. I'm from Martinique, a French island in the Caribbean. I live in France, and I am an AI/machine learning mentor, educator, and expert, and also a startup founder.
I love
So
that. And you're also a Woman Techmakers Ambassador. So talk about how long you've been in the program and kind of some of the things you enjoy doing in our roles as Women Techmaker Ambassadors.
yes, totally. I am a woman tech maker. So I have been a woman tech makers for 1 year. And what I did, it's really about sharing my experience. We did an event at Google Paris. It was last month, and the goal was to talk about AI in general. And I was a speaker. I spoke about my startup, and I really tried to help women in general in tech. So my work as Google Woman Techmakers is more about mentorship.
I love that. And actually, mentorship has come up very strongly for me this year. I never really saw myself specifically in that role, starting first with a peer mentorship group. And then that inspired me to lead a mentorship as part of my own International Women's Day project.
Yeah, actually, I'd like to talk about my journey. I started as a web developer, so I was very passionate about JavaScript, and I decided to have a career as a web developer. So actually, I graduated as a full stack web developer, but my expertise was really about front end development. It was very complicated to switch, so I keep doing front end development, which is interesting, especially with JavaScript. You can do the front end part and the back end part. But I get bored, and I wanted to learn something different, but still in tech, still with computer science. So I decided to learn machine learning myself, data science, revisit mathematics, etc. And I struggled. I wanted to find a mentor, but it was very complicated. I found someone, but she was very. I think that she had imposter syndrome, and for me she was a good fit because she had the knowledge and the experience. She was about, let's say, one step ahead, but she still got this imposter syndrome. And I decided to, I still wanted to learn machine learning by myself. I found another mentor. She was a data scientist, but she decided to switch into become a to have a business. I don't recall, but it wasn't about data science. And because of that, I told myself, I think that I know what I'd like to get, with a mentor. And I just wanted to see if I can become a mentor, because I have been learning, exploring machine learning, creating my own methods to understand better the complex concepts. And I started to mentor high school girls, but just for Python, just to see if I was able to do that. It was so amazing. I was very happy. It was very different from the in a company, because when I was a simple web developer, I also had imposter syndrome. It was very difficult for me to explain things because I felt like I wasn't good enough, even though I was so passionate about JavaScript, so I knew JavaScript very well. And having this occasion to explain things to high school girls was very, it was a new thing for me. So then I decided to join ADP list as a mentor to help people in web development and machine learning. And what I found very interesting is that I attract more underrepresented people. Black people, women, Black people, because I am a Black woman. So it is super cool. Um, and also because I have this ability to find resources, to even to create resources, to find solutions for people. Because for me, to be a mentor is to be able to guide the mentees because they are lost, they are overwhelmed, and to explain to them that, for example, they don't have to do 10 projects at the same time. Usually they do that. And yeah, to be a very good guide because we have more steps before them.
I was working on a project that was a JavaScript project, and over Valentine's Day, my quote was, "Roses are red, violets are blue, unexpected curly black bracket on line 32." It was all, I just kept trying to, sort of debug, and it would work, and then it would break, and then it would work. And I learned so much because I just kind of dove out in the deep end and just sort of said, hey, let's figure this out. And similarly with machine learning, I got into a project and I'm a graduate student, and I'm also, in addition to being a Woman Techmaker Ambassador, I'm also a Microsoft Student Learn Ambassador. So for our Student Learn project, I was like, we're going to do machine learning for satellite imagery. I have no idea how to do this, but I'm going to figure it out. And apparently, lots of other students, there were actually 16 of us in total, decided that that was kind of a sexy idea that we would all try to figure out. So I got permission to break us into 4 teams, and I led the teams. Knowing that I knew a little bit more than they all did, but at the same time, I still really didn't know quite how to do it. And I was so proud that we all had finished projects and we all figured out how to do it. And it was very basic. Like, we didn't get really far in terms of a super sophisticated model, but when you're working with satellite imagery, it kind of breaks into it's clear, it's mixed, or it's cloudy. And so our very first task was just to take the imagery over the location that we had chosen. Usually it was an event. So a flood, an earthquake, a cyclone, and looking at sort of that before and after. And so the first task was to just help it identify so that when we loaded in other images, it could differentiate what was what, and then only use either clear, and then if it had to, mixed in our sort of further analysis, which was basically focused on change detection of sort of the before and the after. So that was my intro into machine learning. And then I also was able to once I had it, I was able to sort of bring it into another school project. And we were looking at the hurricane damage of Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico, and specifically looking to see if we could sort of identify building damage versus non-damage, and categorize it and label it and correct. So I'm still a novice in all of this, but a huge amount of interest in it. I mean, my specific sort of studies are basically geospatial. So I do mapping and GIS, which leads into data science because you're mapping data, and then AI machine learning because you're looking to sort of with, like, again, that satellite drone imagery, you're looking to sort of see that change detection, categorization, predictive analysis, and then security, since my interests are with disaster, national security, and so that sort of also led me into cybersecurity. So those are my sort of areas. So I'm fascinated with all things machine learning. So let's talk about your leap a little bit more. You talked about the mentor and sort of learning on your own, but what were some of those steps with some of those projects that led you to make that transition from front end to machine learning?
Okay, so I had this idea, I think like a lot of people. I wanted to create a recommendation system, if I recall correctly, just to understand how it works. And actually, whenever I decided to learn something, I'm really trying to use my cultural background. For example, when I was still a junior developer, I created a back office to actually mimic the translation system. Because when if you try to translate French quill from Martinique, you don't see the box. You see IT, Haitian quill, but not the Martinique. Or we have another island which is Guadeloupe. and decided to create a translator, but very basic, with a back office, a backend, a server like that. And a few years later, I decided to create something like that, but with deep learning, because obviously the models are better, and we have more solutions to that. Also, I saw Nigerians, so they have this project related to, because they have multiple languages, but they created a model that can actually translate their languages into English. And I was like, okay, I need to try to do that for our Creole, so French, Martinique, and Guadeloupe. So now it's more about using my identity into my projects, because I feel like there are so many projects that we can use to learn machine learning, but they are so generic. And if you use something related to yourself, so me is my cultural background, and that's interesting because I have a student from South Africa, and his project is a little bit like that. Is really, the goal is to enhance his language, so ready to show that his background is important too, because usually we are underrepresented in tech. And well, for me, using your identity like that, it could be your expertise too, because I have been working with medical professionals. So but me, for me, it is more relevant to use my cultural background. So I'm still working on this project. It takes time because we need data. Obviously, I have a book that my mother gave me, and I need to scan the words. Also, I found websites, so I need to do web scraping. But at the same time, I feel more. For me, it's better to help people create their own projects, because I still love coding. I'm still love programming, I still love creating projects, but helping other, it's another way to, I'm proud when I see people with their project. Especially if the project have impact. I'm very proud of that.
I appreciate what you were saying about having it tied to your own identity.
I struggle actually as a woman in color, a black woman. So I had imposter syndrome, but also it was complicated to work with my managers. I had, micromanagement. So I feel like underrepresented people need to know that we are here to help them too. And that's very interesting about the language itself, because I don't know yet if it's actually possible to translate, because the models are so used to English or French, really mainstream languages. So I really need to fix the model, or even create my own stuff in order to have something useful. And this specific project is important to me because, so usually we are in Martinique, and we decide to come in France to, for our studies or to find a job, and we live our life. We have children, and it can be complicated to speak Creole to them. And I think that we need to preserve our language. Today, Creole is, there are a lot of French words in Creole. So I think that this kind of project can help with that, preserving our language. It could be also our spouse. Maybe the spouse is not from Martinique, so it could be he or she can be interested in learning the language. So many challenges, and this is why I love machine learning, because there are biases, obviously, but because there are more people like me into this field, we can change things.
Yeah, and I think that's where it starts, is having people, and exactly what you can kind of come back to what you're saying, doing the things that matter to you, doing the things that are authentic to you, because those are the things that ultimately you're going to best represent and be able to be that change. And you tell me more about your company, because your company seems to now kind of integrate this work that you've done, this transition that you've made, this passion that you have for helping others.
So I, in the beginning, was more about helping web developers like me, and I wanted to demystify AI machine learning with a lot of analogies, kind of comics, because it could be complicated for people to really understand mathematics, statistics, the algorithms. I really love algorithms, but it was kind of funny to find analogies related to that. And because I saw people struggling with the projects, I figured they need mentorship because I am a mentor and I always have the same questions about the projects. I'm working with my students, so I have a beta course program, and with the feedbacks, I'm working on doing something very amazing. So the first part, we have two parts. The first part is what I call the knowledge hub, with the theory explained, very easy to understand lessons with a lot of analogies. But now I really want to focus on what their interests. So for example, if they want to work from using their passions, they will have lessons around that, or their expertise. I'm working with someone who has a medical expertise, so the lessons will be more around that, or their cultural background. Maybe they're interested in traditions, etc. And this is the same thing about the project. So we need, I think for them it's important to find like a category, because usually they are very overwhelmed because they wanted to learn everything. So for me, it's better to find a category, and you can create a project, a very simple linear project, just to understand the basics and go deeper and learn, use deep learning for a more complex projects. And this is a mentorship for program, 12 months, so they can have the time to finish the project, separated by 90-day goals.
That seems like a really good way to do it. So you've got those milestones, but you're in it for a long enough time to have a really sort of full transformation.
Exactly. Yeah, totally.
And who is your ideal customer? Kind of, who are they? Younger? Are they in starting a career? Are they transitioning careers? Where are they at?
I think more transitioning. They know how to code, and usually they are, web developers. Oh, actually, I have one. He's a plumber, I think. I was very surprised, but the because he really wanted to use machine learning, for his cultural background. But usually they have about 30, let's say 30, 40 years old, and they are very interested in tech, in machine learning, but they not necessarily have, they are not, maybe they can be professionals, but usually they are enthusiasts.
And you're also catering to a French language, is that correct? Or is it in English? Is it in English or is it in French?
For now, in English.
Oh, okay. So these are students speaking English. Okay. And they're enthusiasts, and then you're sort of really showing them how they apply this, how they create projects, and creating those, like you said, 90-day milestones, and then
Yes,
having that sort of transformation at the end. I love that. That's amazing.
and usually they are from Nigeria, a lot of countries actually, South Africa, the US is very all over all over the world, so I can work with many people. So interesting, yes.
And do you offer them as sort of you have a program and it's designed as a year? Is it done as a cohort, or do you kind of do one-on-one as they go through it, sort of from when they start to when they end?
More like a cohort, yes.
Okay, so
But I'm still experimenting. It's a beta, so we will see. And actually, what I'd like is, as a Google Woman Tech Makers, we can create events. So what I like is to, in 1 year, they can showcase their projects, could be remotely or at Google Paris, so they can really show the impact and the work that they have done.
that's wonderful. I love that. And I think that, and I do think there's resources and opportunities that we get through Women Techmaker Ambassadors. I've been able to give out scholarships to some of the Google Coursera learnings. I've been able to give out also invitations to other various trainings for Google Cloud. And so, and other just sort of security resources. And so it's been really great to be doing my mentorship as a Woman Techmaker Ambassador, because I've always able to put so much into the conversation and into the resources that I get from Google. So that's been really wonderful. So I think that being able to have, that in your back pocket, and like you said, the event, the visibility, the accolade for the work that they've done, I think is wonderful, because that also probably helps them transition potentially into a new position.
Exactly, yeah. So they can advance, their career. Because I was in this situation, I was bored. I wanted to learn something else, but I was alone, and it was, during COVID, so a long time ago. So I really feel like they need help, because it's not easy to transition. It's very complicated. We need to make sure that we really want to do that, especially when things gets difficult. And for me, the mentorship program is the best things that can help them reach their goal.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I see that as well. I have a lot of career transitioners who have joined us, and it's kind of, I think just also having that confidence that, there is a path, and these people and this momentum is going to kind of help me get there. And I think that's really, really important. I mean, for me, I wanted to do a very hard reset, and I went back to graduate school. That was kind of my way to do it. But that is an expensive investment, and that's not right for everybody, because most people, especially, have other obligations and other things that just they couldn't do it. For me, it works on not so many levels. Like, it was the perfect decision for me. And again, you talk about doing things that are authentically you. That was perfect for me. But that's not a choice everybody else can make. So I also really love the idea of teaching. So many of the ideas and concepts, I get from school, because school is kind of a fire hose of knowledge. And I've also now wandered through a few departments. So I started with urban planning, and then I fell in love with data science and data visualization. And that led me to GIS and the spatial sciences. And then that led me into human security and geospatial intelligence. And that led me over to law school for privacy law and cybersecurity. So I'm doing like a pretty robust, ultimately it'll be a 5-year program for graduate school. And so, yeah, but I love the idea of teaching and mentoring and sharing the knowledge that you have and inspiring others. I think is just so wonderful. And now you also talked about sort of working in your corporate life and sort of having micromanagers, because I think as I look into, my future career, I kind of am of two minds. Like, part of me is like, do I just start my own business and kind of do my own thing? Or the other part of me is like, no, do I just like go government and, do something that's, more traditional and more structured? Or do I sort of kind of split it and do kind of more contract work, but then kind of still have my own thing going on? So I don't know. I'm curious to get your take on that.
So there are stats about women living, I think, after 10 years in tech, for many reasons. Could be children, or could be just the environment, like I said, micromanagement. So when I was a junior developer, it was kind of easy for me. I had the time to train myself. I was very passionate about this field, but it started to get complicated because I think I my salary was bigger. It was more stressful, and I didn't know what to do. I was very, you know, I wanted to try working in a startup, and it was very hard. And I have children, so I don't have time anymore to work a lot. So I feel the stress, the pressure. But like I said, I used to learn online. I was very impressed, and I was like, one day I would have my school, something like that. And for me, but I can still feel the stress, the pressure, but it's different. Being an entrepreneur is hard, but it's different because I know that my mentees will get results, and they are happy to work with me. I have the feedback. It's not hidden like when I was an employee. I didn't know if what I did was good or not, and sometimes I thought that I did a good job, but actually no, and I didn't know why. I saw other colleagues, men who did bad things, and no issues for them. So I was very frustrated, very unhappy. Um, I think it depends. It depends on you. It depends if you are lucky or not. I would say something like that. If you can blend yourself into the culture company, um, I love doing many things at the same time. I love learning many things. I had to learn marketing, business, still learning machine learning. Um, I love learning so many things. So for me, it's better to be, me myself, to be an entrepreneur. But if you feel like you can, you are very straightforward, and for example, you just want to learn to be good at machine learning, deep learning, whatever. You don't need to, you don't get bored easily. You can choose to stay an employee. So everybody's different, and obviously I chose a path that is actually is better related to my personality, my interest, etc.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I think I am going to start kind of doing, well, I'll sort of say, doing my own thing while I'm in school. But what I'm loving right now is I get to do internships, and I've got my first internship with a government agency, which I'm really enjoying. Now, I work for free, they don't pay me, but I like the fact that they have resources. And I do think it's important for me at this stage of my academic life to put government agencies on my resume so that I leave myself that option of having a resume that qualifies me for and I think I'm probably the type of person who will do well with assignments versus I'm here and I'm gonna be here for decades. Although I will say the government agency that I'm interning with, people on that team have been there for decades. So I do think sometimes when you find the right work environment and that it works for you, it's wonderful. But I also think that holding a high standard to make sure that what you have works for you. I kind of refer to it sometimes as ageism. And I know ageism kind of has a very negative connotation to it, but in the most positive way, I think of ageism as I hold them to a higher standard. Because when I was young, I would just move right next to the office and I make it an easy commute, and I'd have an apartment, and I was single, and I didn't need to make a lot of money because my expenses weren't that high. And I was really more about the experience and more about the community and more about just the mission of the work. And as I kind of got older and got more experience, I wasn't willing to move as much, and I wasn't willing to work for less, and I wasn't willing to put up with toxic work cultures and, like you said, micromanagement and things that just didn't feel right. And so I found myself gravitating more and more to environments that I had more control over the culture, which led me to entrepreneurship, whether it was doing my own thing or helping other people start businesses and start startups, where I felt like I was on a team where we were creating the culture together. So that's something that I found that, was very important to me. So I think of ageism now as like holding a higher standard in terms of the work. And when you're married and have kids, you can't just uproot and be like, okay, we're all moving over here now. And you have to be sensitive to like how much time you're willing to commute every day. For some people, remote work is a great option, and working from home. And obviously, when you're an entrepreneur, you don't have to have that fear that like, oh, you're going to be called back to the office now. And so I think that there is a huge amount of freedom in that. Now there's responsibility. You still have to make sure you pay the bills and the money's coming in. So, but once you find a business model that works, once you find happy customers, and you're able to fill that pipeline and deliver value, I think there's nothing better.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's different, there are difficulties, but could be very fulfilling if we have this entrepreneurship mindset. If you still thinking like an employee, it's very difficult.
Yeah, it sounds like you've done a lot of that hard work and that heavy lifting to sort of craft a life and a business that works for you.
Yeah, I have kids, and actually, before the pandemic, it was very complicated because in Paris we have to commute, but I had to leave before after a certain time, but obviously I had to how can I say that, to get my kid before the closing, so it was very stressful because sometimes I was too late. And one day I told myself, I have to find a way to work remotely most of the time, because it is so stressful. It's very exhausting every day like that. And I wanted to create a online business, because I'm good with tech, obviously, and because it is more convenient for my life. So I feel like online business is better, even though having someone that you can see really face to face can be, we have this human contact could be better, but I can help more people. Someone who is, for example, in Nigeria, I can do that easily, um, and I can help other moms actually. So I work with schools, in France. When I don't do online. They don't do that very, not every time. So I can, from time to time, I can commute, but most of the time I prefer working remotely. It is better, especially having kids and to help people, in countries, even in Martinique. Why not? Yeah, totally. That's my mission today.
That's a wonderful mission. I think it's now you are a school, but you're also sort of an individual. So can I ask you, do you sort of charge kind of consulting rates? Because I know, like for me, I go to a very expensive university, but the government kind of gives me loans and cash flows me to be able to do that.
I find that it's a challenge. I did a beta, but the fee was very small, because I really want to see if people, if there are some interest in my program. So now I have students, so they pay the program. But I did a lot of free mentorship sessions, and I had the last 2 months told me, why are you doing that for free? So I was like, because yeah, I'm very passionate. I I do everything I can to help them for free. I mean, obviously, there's a limit, but I decided to add this mentorship thing because before it was already the course, but I really want them to have a transformation. So I added the mentorship part, and my program now, this program, they have to pay. I'm still working on the beta, but yeah, they have to pay, but it is very less expensive than boot camps. I I really don't want to charge like that because I feel like um, everyone can actually get help, and there are payment plans, stuff like that, so they can, so we can manage them to join my program. But I don't want to charge something like 20K, for example. For me, it's too much. But at the same time, obviously, I need to pay my bills, etc. And my work is valuable. I had to struggle with that because I was just, in tech, web developer. So it was very complicated to say I will sell something. For me, it was so weird. But last year, I sold my books about machine learning demystified. I was so proud of myself because it is not easy to demystify machine learning. It takes time, and people bought the books, and I was like, okay, why not creating a course around that? And it's still complicated to do. It takes time. I need to find examples. I need to. Right now, I'm alone. It's complicated to do everything alone. But the mentorship part, just let's say 30 minutes, it's free. And if they want to go deeper, they can join my program, and yeah, they have to pay the fee.
It sounds like as you grow, and I know it's a lot to do on your own, it sounds like as you grow, you're essentially kind of, and you've already demonstrated that by being an author, you'll move more into content creation. You'll move into, there's platforms like Teachable where you can create, the videos and the handouts and the resources, and those sort of people can kind of go through them on their own. And then every once in a while, you can sort of show up live and sort of check in with everybody. But a lot of it sort of ends up being sort of these self-study learning paths so that it is more replicatable. And I guess you're kind of creating more of that funnel of people, who can just kind of stop at the self-study, or they can say, oh, no, I want to upgrade to kind of getting more of your time. And so kind of meeting people where they're at. But I think that idea of the creating things that are, because you can't replicate your own time, doing one-on-one, but when it's pre-recorded and pre-created. And so and again, having done the book, I see you stepping more into the role of a creator, content creator.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, I did. The course is here. It's more about, because tutorials are good, but they don't have this personalization. So I'm navigating around that, and I'm rebuilding my course because I had the feedback, and I feel like it would be more helpful to integrate their identity, right? So I'm experimenting this, and I see that people, because usually they took courses and they don't have a clear explanations about the algorithms. I don't know why, and I've been there. I took those courses because it's hard. It's hard to explain really, but it's really important to understand how it works in order to apply it, especially if you'd like to create your dream project. What I call dream project, it could be a project that will help you with your career or that can help you with your future business.
Mm-hmm. Yep. No, you have a worthy task ahead of you, but I think like you said, just coming out of beta, kind of going where to next. But it's obviously you're clearly changing lives, and it's so important. And I think a lot of people, as technology continues to grow and transform, the way I sort of feel about some of these things is, for example, like there's data scientists, but I feel like so many more roles are just going to not be called data scientists, but want you to know how to do data analytics and like do data like as part of the role. And I think the same thing of AI and machine learning. Like right now we have people like, that's your job, you're a machine learning specialist. But I feel like as we go forward, there's just going to be so many more jobs that expect you to know aspects of machine learning that you're going to integrate into your role. So I feel like we're going to go from these sort of specializations to these generalizations. And one of the kind of data points I have kind of as evidence for that is like looking at my own university and all the different departments and all the classes that they offer, and seeing how every department has a data science class, whether it's biology or criminal justice or urban planning. Like we all need to understand how to work with data and clean data, visualize data. Like that's, and so I just feel like that's going to be just part of so many more jobs. And I think that that's also, in the work that you do, just kind of this, and this is kind of the broader, maybe kind of the lower cost, but like I said, more replicatable. And like you talk about demystifying machine learning is, how to differentiate between machine learning. Like my job is I'm a machine learning engineer versus I'm a geospatial analyst, but I use machine learning in my role. And starting to speak to even more people who can just add a touch of machine learning to transform the work that they do.
Yeah. Because I'm working with enthusiasts, like I said, and it could be a pharmacist, because I did a course for a medical professional. It was very interesting to see those people. I obviously I don't know a lot about the medical field, but talking about the diseases, stuff like that, and how AI can prevent uh, diabetes or predict diabetes. And also they were so motivated actually, because that's not something that they do every day, and that can, it's adding another aspect into the work. So I'm more here to help. The demystifying is really about professionals, but it could be not necessarily data scientists. But I saw data scientists with imposter syndrome. So this is also another aspect, because especially with women, imposter syndrome is here every time, and I'm not happy about that. I feel like we we need to understand that that's normal to not understand everything. You still need to learn, and that's the beauty in the journey. So we really need to get rid of imposter syndrome. So in my program, I have a sort of workbook where I help my students with that, about their imposter syndrome, and actually having this personal project can really help them, because they see what they are capable of.
And I think that there's a couple of different definitions of imposter syndrome, or just different ways it sort of expresses itself. I'd like to touch on some of those. An example, for example, I'll say always identified in the sort of creative world and had a really strong sense of belonging in a creative world. And I'd always done tech. Like if there was anything that needed to be built, I built it. It was, put up a landing page, build out a website. I'd always done those things and hand coded them until the technology kind of evolved. But I always kind of went with the evolution of technology. In my very early days as a marketer, I got my Google AdWords certification. Like I always embraced tech. So I always felt like that just went hand in hand with my job. But I never identified myself as a woman in tech. I didn't know how to code. I didn't know, to me, the Python was at the zoo, not, a computer coding language. Like I wasn't, in the last, like I said, 3 years, I've completely transformed my relationship to tech and to coding. And like I said, once I took on that JavaScript project, I just went down the deep tech hole, and it took me months to emerge because I just get obsessed. Like, I've got to fix this, got to figure this out. So with all that said, I was very much looking for affinity groups. So when I was, got the distinction of being a woman tech maker, it kind of just dispelled any imposter syndrome, because it was like, well, if I'm good enough for Google, then I am a woman in tech. No, there's no discussion. I am a woman in tech. And of course, I'm studying a master's of science, and like all my studies are particularly technical, but it just was that like extra affirmation. And then of course, becoming a Microsoft Student Learn Ambassador and our mapping software Esri. But I gravitated to the ambassador programs. Why? Because I love to public speak. I love to engage. I love to communicate. At first I was trying to put those skills away, and then suddenly realized like, oh wait, there's a place for those skills in these technical communities. So, but then the other part of imposter syndrome is being perhaps at an office and feeling like, okay, all the people around me have more experience, they know what they're doing, and then maybe they mansplain things to me, maybe they micromanage me. I don't know how to set that boundary. Like, I don't like how I'm being treated. I might know it, but I don't have the confidence to set the boundaries to just be treated better in my environment. Or there's other people who like really know it, but just don't have the confidence they know it. And there's no outside forces. It's just a conversation they're having in their own head. So those are sort of some examples I have of kind of imposter syndrome, but maybe you can sort of expand on that, or sort of affirm, or, sort of give your perspective.
Yeah, the three examples are very good, and especially the second one about being in the office, because so I did a project, I remember, for the company, internal projects, and my manager told me to choose the technology. So it was in JavaScript, but it was for visualization. But I didn't know the framework very well, but I was very interested in this framework. So he told me, okay, choose whatever you want. This is what I did. But it took time because it was new to me, and it was internal project, no business related. And a few days later, he told me that he will do more, quickly than me. It was very hard to hear that because he had more experience, obviously. So why saying that? So I had many episodes like that about my experience, and this is why I had very imposter syndrome. It was very hard to get rid of it. Today is different because I have my own business. I have the feedback of my students, but back then it was very hard because of that.
Yeah. No, I think being in environments where it's not supportive and it's kind of competitive, and like I said, there's all sorts of ways in which women are often talked over or talked down to, or ignored, or have been raised to sort of be quiet and not necessarily speak up, and just it's not the most supportive environments that just kind of exacerbate those existing issues. So I think that's why I think programs like Women Techmaker Ambassadors are so valuable, because they help create that sense of, like I said, for me, I could really just own that identity. And also I think affinity groups are really important. So joining those associations. Like I wasn't really aware. I knew associations existed, but only when I became a student did I really become aware of associations. And so some of the associations that have again given me that sense of I belong. I'm and again, a lot of them are women organizations. So I'm part of Women in GIS, Women in Geospatial, Women in Cloud, Women in Machine Learning, Women in Cybersecurity are all associations that I'm involved with and I love. I have a communications background. I found that going back to grad school, I found my interest was in government. And I am a member of an association that's military. And it's just, they're so wonderful. They're so welcoming. Nobody's actually been like, well, you weren't in the Army. Like, what are you doing here? Everybody's like, oh, you have an interest in like what we do and we love having you here. And how can we help you grow in this field? And how can we help you, be a civilian that supports government, national security, defense? And so it's just been really interesting that by just showing up and not being afraid and having a genuine interest, how many people sort of then can attest to you belong here. And I really think that's what we're looking for to overcome imposter syndrome is really what it is a sense of belonging.
Yeah, your journey is very inspiring, and I think that's very important to find multiple, let's say, multiple jobs. Actually, before web development, I was in art school, so I did the Sorbonne. I studied visual arts. I was very into arts. I did the paintings, I did digital arts, and a teacher showed us a piece of code. I think it was processing. It's like JavaScript, and I was like, okay, I need to learn that, because for me, I love the technology. I always loved the technology, so I wanted to find a way to use both my creativity, my artistic side with technology. So it was complicated to find that when I was a front-end developer. And today it is more about, I think, the projects. I am more comfortable with NLP for the language part than computer vision, but I feel like one day I will do an actual computer vision project. So I don't limit myself. I don't think that we should do that, and we can explore so many things. I started crochet. It's very interesting because for my stress and because I'm a manual person. So it's very, very great to have to see inspiring journey like that. I'm also in several groups. So in France, we have the Duchess. We also have Ladies of Code. In general, Pi ladies, also women in data science. So I totally agree. It's very important as a woman to be a part of organizations like that.
Yeah, I think they can, like I said, I think that can really help overcome imposter syndrome. And also it does help, like if there's something you need to learn or something you need to grow into, because imposter syndrome, again, we're not trying to fake it till you make it type of thing. If you really don't know the skill, go learn the skill. But just the sense of, hey, I'm in this industry, I'm aspiring to be in this industry. I learned that with cybersecurity. So when I started this mentorship, I had no idea what the answer was. I just kept hearing that it's a broken bridge and it's really hard for women after they get their certifications or after they get their education or if they're trying to make a career and transition to get into cybersecurity. And I had just started my law school course in cybersecurity, and I kind of had an interest in it. And I was like, you know what? I did just keep seeing post after post, specifically for women, a lot of Facebook groups saying, I don't know what's next. I just feel so alone. And I just don't see the next step. And so that's what inspired the mentorship. And I just kind of very subtly, like I put comments on those posts or I put it out on LinkedIn, and I ultimately invited two cohorts. So one that started with us in April and another one that joined us in July. And just said, come join us. Like it's open, it's welcome, but it was specifically for women who had their certifications, had their degree, or sort of were in, and just either were starting or in some transition, but we're like, I don't know the way in. And what we've determined over the course of the last 6 months is that you don't look for a job in cybersecurity. what you do is you get into the cybersecurity industry. And you do that through, again, organizations like Women in Cybersecurity. There's another one, Cyber Jiu-Jitsu, which is also for women. And you don't have to just do the women ones. Like, there's many organizations, and I became a nice cybersecurity career ambassador. And that's an amazing community of people who are at the leaders of government who are committed to people having a smooth cybersecurity transition. So make friends with them, get involved. And so by becoming part of the community and, again, taking advantage of all of these resources that I was able to provide through Google, and just everybody, like, by midway through, everybody was just clearly busy. They're like, I got it. Like, I know what I'm doing next. I know where I'm going next. I'm involved. I'm engaged. And then the job opportunities started coming. Like, then it was like, oh, okay, I either see what I need to learn next, or I see a new position, or it's just because they were owning it and they were visible in the community that the opportunities started to find them, versus sort of just seeking the opportunities and feeling like nothing was happening.
That's great. And yes, personal branding is so important. I will encourage my students with that. Post on LinkedIn very often, try to reach out CTOs, because it's better to seek out the opportunity, and you can try meetups, stuff like that, because the goal is really to be visible.
Yep. And back to visible with announcing, hey, I got a new certification. Hey, I got a new training. Hey, I'm a mentor. Hey, I'm a mentee. Hey, like, whatever, celebrate those things and allow other people to celebrate with you. But nothing needs to be fake. It needs to be just you absolutely at where you're at. And also not to underestimate content marketing and the role of content, the role of communication, because I have found that when I was looking through all the internship opportunities with government, many of them, like a surprising amount, they were looking for their interns to be the social media people, like, help us create our content, help us grow our channel, help us, with that. We're looking for the younger generation to help us tell these stories. So similarly, for people entering a field, if you want to enter machine learning, you want to enter cybersecurity, you want to enter web development, start curating content, start sharing content, start seeing who the leaders are out there, start seeing what the best resources are out there, the blogs, the YouTube channels. You don't even have to create them. You just need to, curate and amplify the ones that already exist. And then if you're inspired to then create and write your own blog and create your own original posts, you can do so. But you can just start by just amplifying other people's content. So those are all ways. So what advice do you have as we kind of wrap up?
My advice is believe in yourself. You can do it. It's hard, but find mentors. Reach out to Google Woman Techmakers. We are here for you. Forget about imposter syndrome. Practice, and post on LinkedIn.
Yeah, be visible, be confident in yourself. And sometimes you can get third parties. We actually, through one of my organizations, we had done a workshop together where we all sort of did LinkedIn reviews and helped each other up our LinkedIn profiles and how we spoke about ourselves, and got that kind of community input. So everybody walked away with a better LinkedIn profile. So sometimes you don't even need to do that by yourself. I always also, this is my entertainment media background. I also recommend to everybody, take the time to get professional headshot, because that actually you will use, and people ask you for a headshot all the time, and you want one that's of high quality, not just one that's taken on a cell phone. Those cell phones are, getting better and better, but, actually a real camera, especially, again, if you want to do any kind of public speaking, you want to have good professional, media assets to back you up.
Yes.
But even just simply using that cell phone, making sure that you do have a good LinkedIn image and things like that. So, just the real basics. But that's where I actually, like I said, I find so much joy in the fact that my tech and my entertainment are all sort of finding themselves, weaving themselves back together. And and I think that, just a big takeaway that I loved from what you were saying is even in machine learning, you're doing the projects that are authentically you.